Over to you, Stephanie.
Welcome. Excuse me. Welcome, everyone. We'll just, the last few people are just coming onto the webinar, so we'll just take a minute or so for them to do that, and then we'll get started. People are just coming in. We'll just wait a few more seconds. Participant numbers are still increasing, but we'll get started very shortly. It's just gone 10, so we'll get started. Kia ora everyone, te ao whalawa, ni hao, hello, good morning, welcome. It's great to see you all. My name is Stephanie Maitland, and it's my pleasure to again be your host for ANCAD's Funding Forum. I've completed hundreds of funding applications and worked with many schools, charities, sports organisations, and so I fully appreciate how important this funding source is and how valuable hearing direct from funders can be. It's now my pleasure to ask Fiona Brennan, General Manager of ANCAD, to say a few words.
Thank you, Stephanie. Ate Marie, now mai harimai, tena koutou, tena koutou, tena koutou katoa. Ko Fiona Brennan Tokuingwa, General Manager of ANCAD. I'd like to welcome the over 300 people gathered here, or shortly to be gathered here, across Tamaki Makaurau and Aotearoa to our annual funding forum. I'd also like to offer a warm welcome to our speakers, representing a range of funders to our annual funding forum. Thank you for volunteering your time, sharing your experience and expertise. So thank you, Kelly, Internal Communications Manager from Auckland Airport, Bronwyn Walters, Community Advisor for the Department of Internal Affairs, Rebecca Mihu, Senior Trustee of Charities Public Trust, and Racheal Monks, Community Trust and Investment Manager for SkyCity Community Trust. I hope I got all of those correct. And I think hopefully we're supposed to be welcoming Kirsten Taylor for Head of Philanthropy at Pepetual Guardian in due course. I'd like to acknowledge the work of Stephanie Maitland of Maitland and Associates for working with us to organise this event, and my appreciation also to Simon Ritchie, our training and capability lead. Without these two people, a lot of things wouldn't happen at ANCAD. ANCAD's mission is for resilient, safe, connected communities. We support organisations through their life cycle through a range of capacity and capability building initiatives and programmes, from affordable professional development for not-for-profit organisations, customised packages of support services to charities and community groups, convening collaborative networks, facilitating community-led development, providing social services coordination for family violence prevention. We've got a few projects on our plate. We reach out to all parts of our community with dedicated support for our ethnic communities and Pacific Peoples organisations. Finally, we work closely with a range of partners, government agencies, philanthropic organisations, and importantly, all of our community members and some of you gathered here today. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of you, our funders, community organisations, who do the hard mahi for our communities and services. Thank you, kia ora, and I'll hand back to Stephanie.
Thanks, Fiona. So some housekeeping things. A copy of the slides will be emailed to you. This webinar is being recorded, and information on how to watch will also be sent to you. At the end of each presentation, the speaker will be available to answer your questions, as many questions as time allows. So please put your questions in the Q&A box This is the only box I'll be monitoring, and I'll do my very best to get through as many of your questions as possible. So in case you're not aware, ANCAD offers a range of educational opportunities through its Lift Aotearoa program, which is supported by the Tyndall Foundation. I now ask Simon Ritchie, Training and Capability Lead at ANCAD, to tell you more.
Thanks, Stephanie. Well, kia ora, everyone. It's great to have you with us. And just on the next slide, we have ANCAD's Capability Building Program, Training and Professional Development for all not-for-profit groups across the country, really. And many have attended this in the past, and we've got a fantastic program of lineup available as well. Look, the next slide is showing just some of the training that we have available. This is a little bit detailed. I won't go through it. I'll just say that this is all about supporting leadership in times of change. These are 90-minute sessions on Zoom once a month, focused on supporting not-for-profit leaders across the country, as I say. This time this year, we've got 5 great presenters, specialists in their field, providing professional development and discussion around key topics of interest. All you need to do is just on the left there, there's the Lift training website, and just head there for more information and how to register. The next slide shows the training available for, thanks Stephanie, for governance. And this is a series that we're calling Governance Matters. So just on, there we go. So this is a short sessions on Zoom in the evening, once a month on key governance topics. Simply head to the training website, lift.nz, for more information and how to register. On the following slide, we've got Essential First Aid. It's a practical 4-hour workshop, and this will be held in Takapuna on March the 7th, covering essential first aid skills. People that have attended in the past have absolutely enjoyed it and really gained from it. Again, just go to the left website for more information and to register. The next slide talks about another workshop we have coming up, which is all about introduction to community-led development. That's social media, which is coming up as well. So it might be on the next one. There we go. So this one here is a 4-hour workshop, will be held in Sanyamuk on March the 13th, covering essentially what community-led development is, how it works, how you can employ it, and there's 5 key principles to your own mahi. Again, just head to the left website for more information. And we go to that social media one. We've got Essential Skills #1 course and 3 courses for this year. This one's all about creating your ultimate 3-month social media planner, presented by an award-winning social media guru, Alicia Hancock. The session on March the 19th is on Zoom, and that's designed to help you master social media for greater impact in the area of planning ahead. Again, head to that left website. And the following slide talks to you about hot off the press, ANCAD's 2025 funding guide. So this is now available as a PDF version, downloadable, or as a hard copy. Prices are on the screen in front of you there. Just head to the ancad.org.nz shop page, and you can purchase one of those there as well for yourself. And lastly from me, the next slide is talking to you about a weekly e-news that ANCAD puts out called the Community Pulse. And as you can see on there, simply head to the ANCAD website to subscribe to this. It gives you weekly news for the not-for-profit community and gives you our latest upcoming workshops, community news, and events as well. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks, Simon. Don't you love it when the enter button doesn't work? So you press it twice and it takes you to you skip a slide. Yay for technology. Okay, so our program for today, our first speaker is, sorry, my apologies if you are specifically wanting to hear from the One Aotearoa Foundation, formerly the Vodafone Foundation. They unfortunately had to cancel early this week, so won't be joining us today. What I can say following our conversations with them is that it's possible they will be looking for a new charity partners in 2027, with decisions made in 2026. So please, they asked if you keep an eye on their website for further information. So these are our speakers for today and the timing, and we'll do our very best to finish by 12. Simon, you've got a couple of poll questions for our attendees this morning.
do. Thank you, Stephanie. So look, we thought we could gather some data and make it really interesting for people to view as well. So this time we've just got a couple of questions. I'll launch the platform here. If you would be kindly enter your responses, that would be fantastic. Here we go, folks. This question is, how long have you been, if you have, how long have you been completing funding applications? Less than a year, between 1 and 3 years, 3 to 5, or more than 5 years? And if you go ahead to the second question as you're doing, how many funding applications does your organisation typically do per year? All right, let me count down. Thank you, folks. We got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll end the poll about now, and we'll see the results. All right, there we go, Stephanie. So that's the first one. That's looking fairly even, less than a year or more than 5 years seems to be for most people. And again, less than 10 per year. So that gives us a good indication of how we can support people on this forum.
Wonderful. Thank you. Just a reminder, questions in the Q&A box, and we'll ask each speaker after their presentation to answer as many questions as we can. So our first speaker is back by popular demand, and it's my pleasure to welcome Kirsten Kilian-Tyalor, Head of Philanthropy at Pepetual Guardian. Kirsten, great to see you. Thank you for being here today. Over to you.
Hi, thanks, Stephanie. Lovely to be here as always, and lovely to see you all. I didn't do a presentation this time because I found last time I did one and I didn't follow it whatsoever. So I thought we would freestyle and have a bit of a conversation. Just to give you a little bit of background about Pepetual Guardian, we are traditionally a trustee company that manages deceased estates, writes wills, helps families with family trust arrangements, sometimes acts for people who no longer have capacity or don't wish to act for themselves. And I suppose 150 years ago, when we started out, there was an instance where people didn't have a family line to leave funding to, and they started leaving funding to charitable works. So I think our oldest charitable trust is just over 100 years old. And we've been in operations for 150 years old. And our oldest charitable trust is 100 years old. A lot of our trusts, the trusts in our portfolio, come from families that didn't have anywhere else to leave the funds. And then there are a few high net worth givers who have funds given during their lifetimes to organisations they've worked with in their lifetimes. They've worked with us during their lifetimes, and then they've left a legacy thereafter. So about 90% of our trusts come from deceased estates, and then a small portion come from people who want to give while they're living. So you can imagine a lot of those funds come from the traditional generations, the silent generations, and a few early baby boomers. And as a result of that, you can probably articulate in your minds where their giving pathways sit. So we have a lot of Salvation Army, a lot of Red Cross, a lot of Cancer Society, arthritis, dementia, and 2/3 of our portfolio actually goes to fixed purposes. So when we talk about the $40 million that we give away every year, on average, that's about what it is over a 10-year period. 2/3 of that is someone who left that fund and named someone specifically. So we are that safe pair of hands that invests the funds here and gifts them here in accordance with that individual's heart's intentions. Then the other portion of our portfolio, so approximately 1/3, comes with nuances and wishes, but of a more, I suppose, in a broader sense. So they might say elderly, in poverty, a little bit of youth, health must be in Southland, and things like that. And for those of you that are familiar with what we offer, all of our contestable charitable trusts are advertised on the Pepetual Guardian website, alongside of an approximation of how much they give, all of their nuances, the area that they give to, and then of course the name of the legator that sits under that. So we collect applications on the Pepetual Guardian Funding Hub, which is otherwise known as Flux, all digitally. And in order to apply to any one of those platforms, you need to create an account for the organisation that you are requesting funding on behalf of, and that becomes your anchor point with us. So all of the applications that are made via your organisation, we attach you to your organisation, and then all of your applications, grants, reports, declined grants sit in under that. And we're really enjoying being 2.5 years into that, having that kind of consolidated structure. And we've been so impressed with people's interaction with the system. 9 times out of 10, beautiful applications. They get in touch with our help staff if things are getting a bit clunky, and we go from there. So for each grant round, we collect a suite of applications. We take them to a set of trustees who then look at the wishes and the nuances of that individual, who is at the heart of everything we do. And we look at them against the applications and we try and find the best possible matches. Sometimes there's only a few that are a great match. Sometimes everyone's a great match and we get to the point where there's just not enough funds to go around. We tend to be subscribed at this point sometimes 10 times what we've got to give. And we find that's only escalating with the funding cuts that have come through this government. So there have been tears around board tables. The need grows and the funding seems to remain the same. We try and invite new funders into new spaces, into new giving pathways where we see gaps. One of the biggest areas we see gaps, for example, is in education. People give to their alma mater. They create more architects, they create more lawyers, they create more doctors, for example. But there's all those gaps in education. We don't have very much funding in that realm. And in the youth space, we only have a very little bit. Arts is also a very small part of our portfolio. So reflective of where our portfolio comes from, our key giving pathways are social services and health or health-aligned services. We're beginning to dabble in others. We've seen in the last 3 years more environmental funds come through, and then an astronomical need in the application rounds. So very much overdue, I would say. So that's kind of an overview of who Pepetual Guardian are, how we run our grant making processes. I'm the head of philanthropy at Pepetual Guardian, but I've been with the organisation 15 years. So I've come right through from running the grant rounds through to where I sit now. And I really love that I'm able to apply that operationalised grant making side of things to this role. I also write a lot of funding applications in my volunteer roles on the boards that I sit on. And so I absolutely encourage all staff who are making decisions around trusts to volunteer on boards so they can get that look through between funder and funded. It makes them far more compassionate in their giving and far more understanding of the hoops that we ask you to jump through in order to get funding, which are vast and nuanced to every single funder out there. And I can never apologise enough for that. So I'd like to use this last little bit to open for questions, and I'm at your disposal. Anything you'd like to know about Pepetual Guardian, our giving pathways, let me know if you've got any questions.
Thanks, Kirsten. That's great. Are you seeing an increase in more trusts being formed who want to give money to charity, or has that been pretty stagnant?
It's not significant, but it's not quite stagnant either. I think probably the most interesting thing is that people are wanting more so to be involved than they are wanting to give funding at first. And all of the philanthropy that we've created has been a long lead time. So there are people I started talking to when I first started working here, and 5, 8, 10 years later, they're creating the trusts they are giving to. So we average probably between 1 and 3 brand new trusts a year. Mm.
Question, are there climate change specific grants?
Not exactly. So we had an environmental fund open giving to kind of Manawatu area. The maintenance, care, development of anything that is publicly accessible, walks and tracks and things like that. We have a couple of funds that give to agricultural research at a postgraduate level. We find they're often looking at the effect of climate change in agriculture. So there are fellowships and research grants available there. And we have a very quiet client who pops up every few years to potentially invite applications, predominantly from around Auckland, for anyone doing environmental works. So that's the Little Corfi Trust, and the family sits in behind that, and they run a bit hot and cold, so it's not all that consistent. It's a matter of staying really close to that schedule that we publish, minimum looking at it once a month to make sure that you're across anything new that might have popped up.
So for those who aren't aware of the schedule, if you go into the Pepetual Guardian website and go into there's a section where the funds that are currently open, and you can see the schedule for the year, and it's well worth getting a copy of that. But also, as Kirsten said, checking in once a month to see what's currently open, what's coming, and so that you can plan accordingly.
I'm just going to pop the link to that in the chat in one moment.
So Karen's asking, how are the deadlines decided? Are they spread across the year?
So each of the trusts has an accounting period, and what we try and do is get to the end of the accounting period, determine exactly how much we've got to give, and then create a grant round. So at the moment, our grant rounds are typically open for applications for 3 to 4 weeks. Some are open year round if they're really nuanced and we struggle to find our audience. But they are decided just based on practice that we extract from fellow funders. Some of our partnership grants, so if it's a really big sum of money, we might go through an expression of interest and then a shortlist and then an application and a business case funding process before we actually fund a really big grant. So those can be up to 6 months.
Next question, are all Pepetual funding grants located within the GEMS portal as well?
So GEM is a independent business of their own. What they do is they extract data from the public arena and put it into GEM. We don't have any formal interaction with them. So my assumption is that if it's published on the Pepetual Guardian website, it will be published on GEM, but we don't have any control or knowledge and we don't monitor that.
So it's worth keeping an eye on both.
Yeah.
Next question, where does amateur sport fit within your funding rounds?
Gosh, that's interesting. I've just had a funder start working with me on an amateur sport, well, let's say sporting affiliated round, and they're not opening publicly. But if you are helping disadvantaged people gain access to sport, interact with sport, if that sport is anywhere affiliated with things that are linked to the Olympics, you can send me an email. But otherwise, clubs, things like that, we don't really have funding unless you take maybe a social services approach and consider funding under that. But you'd really need to stress the level of deprivation, the fact the kids wouldn't participate, and I suppose the social outcomes of involvement in amateur sport, which we know are vast.
Okay. Do you give or prefer multi-year funding?
We do give multi-year funding. We I suppose one thing about Perpetual Guardian is that we are a little more transactional in our grant making, and over the years I've really fought against that. Um, I really wanted and been envious of the big entities like Foundation North who do partnership and relationship style grant making. But the way our portfolio is built and with all of the individual nuanced wishes and those people that sit in front of them who have to be front of mind in everything we do, it lends itself more to transactional grant making. So a large majority of ours are year by year by year. But there are certain instances of multi-year, and we always welcome you to say in your application, we'd love to have multi-year if there is that availability.
Mm-hmm. So how do you balance the emotional variation between being on either side of the funding? You've talked about being on the board and also giving money away in your day-to-day job. As I assume would be very difficult to not give to the charities you're familiar with.
Yes. So that is one reason we stay connected via Fins, via Philanthropy New Zealand. Give a Little is also a part of our philanthropic stable of offerings. So we are exposed, I think, to a great deal of charities and need, such that we know that any one individual entity can't take precedence over another. And what takes precedence for us is always the wishes of that individual that sit behind it all. We also have kind of staggered decision-making processes. So if I made the decision showing favour to someone that I was affiliated with, someone would come in over the top of that and check my bias. We also have to declare conflicts of interest. So it would be very rare you would see someone involved with an organisation giving to that organisation unless it was such a beautiful affiliation that the conflict could be discharged.
Mm-hmm. And can people apply under an umbrella?
Yes, absolutely. So we help people apply under an umbrella because we have some clients that do that. You just have to clearly state the affiliation, and I suppose it has to be verified. So you'd have to give that information in your application form and be quite clear about it.
If an organisation has been declined for several years in a row for a particular trust, is it best to cease future applications?
Gosh, that is such a good question and such a difficult one to answer. So the gal who sits on the board would recommend, I mean, it depends how much capacity you've got, but potentially taking a break, because I do think you have to be strategic with your time. That said, where Perpetual Guardian is concerned, we try and give everyone a go over a series of years. So if it has been a number of years that you haven't been successful, you have to assume strategically it's not a great affiliation with what that person really wanted to do with their money, or there are other organisations that come in over the top and are a better affiliation with what that individual intended. So I would probably I'd either pause or I would step away strategically.
Would you be willing to have a chat with that charity around why they might have been declined, what they could do differently, sort of on an individual basis?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a service we provide because when we are working on behalf of a trust, it becomes a chargeable activity. So we walk this really fine line where, some of our highly subscribed trusts get 150 applications a year. And we want as much of the money to go to charity as possible and not too much to go to our administration services. But from time to time, we do provide that feedback if we do have it and if they contact us directly.
Mm-hmm. Is it possible to be able to put forward a charitable purpose to be considered for people for people considering setting up a trust? So you talked about some of the trusts saying yes, putting Red Cross. Could a charity come to you saying, would you be willing to could a family be willing to support them as in their trust deed?
That's a really cool question. For sure. I am always looking to build my knowledge of the sector, and there is a possibility that there are areas out there that we're unaware of. We try and maintain our networks as vastly as possible through events like this and many others, such that it's rare something's a surprise to us. But we love to have more strings to our bow so that if we are approached or we are talking to people who have a particular interest, we think, ding, this is a brilliant affiliation. Interestingly, it is so rare that the people speaking to us want to speak to the charity. When they choose a professional trustee company, it's usually because they want that discretionary wall between them and the charity. They may not have capacity, they may not want to open the floodgates, many different reasons. They tend to want to operate through us, which is why we build those really personable, really trusted relationships.
Mhm. What tends to be amount provided for grants? Is there a sort of an average?
Yeah, there is actually. So when I first started in this job, it was $5,000 was our average, and in our report last year, it was almost $17,000 on average. So I'm really happy to see that edging up to more enabling higher value grants. But some of the grant value averages are based on the amount of funding that trust has to give, and the wide terms, therefore the number of people they fit. So we're constantly umming and ahhing about funding a couple significantly or a number at a lower level. And it kind of depends on the suite of applications received on the day where we land.
Fair enough. You mentioned a little bit of youth is in your portfolio. Are you
Oh,
able to expand on that, please?
yes. So there's a fund in Wellington, the Bear Trust. So early last year, we merged with Trustee Executors. And in their portfolio, they have a couple erring youth and mental health. So the Bear Trust being one of the significant ones, the Wilkes Trust being another, both published on our the agenda, for which I put a link in the chat. They are trying to help kids who have had a rough trot. Um, and there are boards of governors on that, derived from all sorts of places in the sector, and some religious leaders that help advise on those applications. But those are our largest youth funding rounds at the moment.
Mhm. What makes a good application for those in the social sector? Some top tips, but maybe it's just a good application in general.
For me in particular, so a lot of ours are kind of in the social services bent. So first we have to go through that schedule and really make sure that you're in the location and that you kind of fit nicely. And then you have to prepare your application as if you're speaking to the person who set this whole thing up. I think it'd really honour Molly Carr to fund this because they're at the centre of everything we do as a professional trustee. Um, so you have to be able to speak to your impact. Doesn't matter if that is your impact or your impact evolves. I find 9 times out of 10, the gut feeling of a grant writer and their leaders and leadership teams feel for impact tends to translate and some. So really lean into that. That is something we're always looking at. The affiliation with the individual, the impact, I suppose your tenure with the work, the need is the particular thing. We don't want people doing these ones and creating programs of work. We don't want to fund that type of thing. We want to fund something where there is a need confirmed with the people who are front and center of that need. The nothing about us without us kind of need verification.
I've got time for one more question, trying to find ones that could give you as much, that are appeal to as many as possible. Do you have funders that focus on disability?
I volunteer in this space extensively, and I'm sad to say that we have very few. The ones we do have tend to give to the big names directly because they were set up with that intention by people, I don't know, affected by, involved in the sector. But there are a few that can squeeze in here and there under the social services element and actually the health element. So it's worth having a bit of a look, but nothing that's a sweet spot. I'm constantly fighting for funding in that sector as well, and she's a challenge.
Mm. So the other questions that we didn't get to were regarding what you specifically fund for youth or arts or refugees. So that information is all on the in the schedule and on the website. So those questions we didn't quite get to, please, it's all on their website. Take a look. And Simon, one of the questions that did come up was about the chat being disabled. So if you're able to fix that, and then we can put the link into the Pepetual Gardening website. Kirsten, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Your time and your knowledge and sharing that with us. Really appreciate it. I know you've got a busy day, so thank you for being here. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for having me. Be well, everyone. Happy funding.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Stephanie. Just regards to chat. Look, I've got a copy of the link from Kirsten, and I'll send that in a follow-up email to everyone afterwards as well, just in case there's any information that our panelists want to provide, and do it that way.
Perfect. But hopefully the questions we didn't get to, absolutely, the information is on the Pepetual Guardian website about who they fund, when they fund. They have a schedule you can download to show you what's coming up for the year. But I certainly recommend, I have a reminder in Outlook that pops up on the 1st of every month to remind me to look at the Pepetual Guardian website to see what's open, what's coming up. So you might like to do something similar that works for you. So our next speaker is Bronwyn Walters, the Community Advisor of the Department of Internal Affairs, a key funder for many, with COGS and lotteries being prime examples. Welcome, Bronwyn. Really great you could join us today. Over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Kia ora, everyone. I'm Bronwyn Walters. I'm a community advisor with Te Tare Tai Whenua, and I work in Hapai Hapori Community Operations. So I'm just going to briefly just go through who we are as community operations. So this is our statement. So we work to support hapu iwi and community, and so that's a real focus of ours. And so we do funding, which I'll get to in just one more slide, but we also provide advisory services. So these, sometimes in Auckland you have amazing organisations like ANCAD that we might refer people to, but we can also talk about some of the other these sort of services and come and talk to you about your projects, etc. And occasionally we can suggest other places or what's happening within the funding space. We're quite well connected with primarily Auckland Council and Foundation North. But today I'm talking about our grants that we administer. So there are three main sources of funding that we administer. The first one of these is lottery funding. So that's a sale of lotto tickets and instant Kiwi cards. The profits of those are given to the Lottery Grants Board, who allocate out into various different parts. So about 40% goes to the statutory bodies. So that's Sport New Zealand, the New Zealand Film Commission and Creative New Zealand. And to find out about how they use lottery funding, you need to go onto their websites. The rest of it is divided up into specialist committees and lottery community committees. And we administer those funds on behalf of the Lottery Grants Board. And I've listed all the different committees there. They're all available on our website, which there are links in the presentation. So when you get this sent out, you'll be able to go onto the website. But today I'm going to talk about Auckland Community Fund. We also administer some Crown-funded schemes, and they're listed here. Today I'm talking about COGS, but we also have the Community and Volunteering Capability Fund and a few other different funds as well. And finally, we administer a whole lot of trusts and fellowships. I'm not going to talk about any of these. These are, as you can imagine, really specific bits of funding that you can find out about on our website. So lottery community. So I'm going to talk broadly about lottery community, a little bit about the Auckland Committee. And so these are grants primarily for non-profit organisations, for hapu and marae, and they need to have a community or social service focus. They are in funding rounds, so there's 2 rounds a year. The next round opens in July and closes in August, and with a decision in November, and the following round opens in November and closes in December with a decision in March for lottery community. The funds can be used for ongoing operational costs, and they can be used for specific projects as well. And some groups apply for both operation and projects. It just needs to be clear. And this fund is the one that if you've got a minor capital works project valued at 50,000 or less, this is the fund you would apply for. We have another fund called Lottery Community Facilities Fund, and that is for the larger projects that are worth 50K or more. And so The lottery committee will look at how your project or your activity that you do benefit the community and help these are the following things. Just to know that there's this little bulleted list here. You don't have to do all of these things. You can just do one, and it's not listed in a rank of where we fund more about volunteers and less about how people feel they belong. If we could write it in a circle and it was still able to be read, that's how it would look. Each of the committees determine where they want to invest locally. Unfortunately, this is just in between our funding rounds. So the lottery committees will be meeting in April and May to look at where they would like to invest for the next financial year, which starts in July, and information will be on our website in June. For lottery community, we've just last year changed a couple of the requirements and made them a little bit more flexible. So if you're applying for a grant that's $20,000 or more, you need to provide a budget. But you for the smaller grants, then you don't need to provide a budget anymore. Financial accounts, that's always that's the same. And if your request is for minor capital work, even if it's for under 20,000, you just need to provide one quote. It used to be 2 quotes. We do have templates on our website, but you don't have to use those templates. They're just if you're not sure about your budget. The other fund I'm going to talk about today is the COGS, Community Organisation Grant Scheme. So that is I should say, sorry, that the average grant for lottery, we don't have a cap on how much or little you can apply for, but the average grant for lottery, Auckland, is about $40,000, but we provide funding for groups obviously that are less and that are more than that. So COGS, there are 37 distribution committees across New Zealand for COGS, and there are 5 committees in Auckland, and those committees are, can I remember them? Rodney North Shore, Waitakere, Auckland City, Manukau, Papakura Franklin, and there's also one for Great Barrier as well. And that opens quite soon on the 16th of April and closes on the 14th of May with a decision by the end of July. Those committees meet. So these are, again, for operational costs or community costs like hui or training, projects and events costs. For COGS, every request does need a budget, and the average grant for COGS is around $2,500. So these are much smaller. It's a much smaller pool of funding for COGS. For all of our funding, except for some of our trust funding, which has a different set of rules that are created by the trustees, but for lottery funding and for the Crown funding schemes, you have to be non-profit. So we don't fund business and we don't fund individuals. Occasionally a limited liability company that has a charitable purpose written in its rules does apply. Most of those are actually also registered on charity services. However, we do umbrella funding, and there's information on that about that on our website. So most groups are legal entities, and they can apply for as much as they like. If your group is a non-legal entity, which means that you haven't registered your group with Companies Office, but you do have a bank account in the group's name, then we are able to provide funding for up to $10,000. And we also look at governance, things like conflicts of interest and management. And I've got a link in the last slide again for you all to look at later for the charities website that just talks about what a charitable organisation would look like. So these are just some generic tips for funding. Oops, hang on a second. I've just clicked on something that I shouldn't have. There we go. Okay, so first of all, communicate within your organisation. So we have a lot of people that apply, and as you saw in our first part, there's a bit of a gap between when you apply and when you find out. And during that time, we might need to call you up and ask you about some questions. And quite a few people like to go away on holiday, which is fine, but make sure someone else is in your organisation that we can talk to. When your applications, be really clear on what you're trying to achieve and maybe have a discussion within your organisation with your trustees or governance board about what it is that you would like funding for, and that needs to be clearly articulated within your request. Obviously, check opening and closing dates, and if you've already received a grant from us, make sure that you've completed any results reporting and things like that before you, or make sure it's on your calendar to remember to complete all those reports. So sometimes those reports will come in after you've applied for funding, but if when the committee is looking at your application, you have overdue results reports, that might impact what they think about, and it also impacts our payment system. There we go. Provide all the information requested. So we have budgets. In our budget, we ask for groups to apply to put all expected income. So it might be other philanthropics you're hoping to apply for, but you don't know about yet, or you're planning to apply for in the future. So it just to list all of it. So we have a lot of groups that ask for $10,000 and they don't put any other expected income in their budget. And so that's the most common reason why we have to go back to organisations. So for all funders, have a look at what information they need and make sure that's provided in your supporting documents. Tell your story. So we really want to know who you are and what impact giving money to your group will have. And that's what our committees look at when they're deciding on where they give the funding. Like Kirsten mentioned, we have more funding requested than we have to give, significantly more requested. And so it really helps to really know who you are. But don't go on and on. We don't need a novel, because sometimes when there's too much information, actually your story gets a little bit lost in that. Include really useful information and data that supports your application, but we often get information that is it's too much. It's links to the World Health Organization reports from 2018. That's not necessarily going to support your application. So we're interested in who will benefit and how they will benefit, and the community support, and that's particularly important if you're newer to funding, is to sort of say how you know that that's needed, and look at the fund priorities and be clear about what you are hoping to get funding for aligns with what the committee would like to fund. There's been a lot of chat around AI. What I would say is AI is a fabulous tool, but use it with caution. If you copy and paste all of our priorities into AI, it will spit out a lovely application. But when we look at that, which we have, many groups have used that, they all look the same and they don't tell your story. So we don't know who you are. So use AI with a caution, but there are some really great tools as well. I just want to point out, often when I go and speak to people, the way that they speak is much better than how they write. But there are tools like text, speech to text tools where you can say your story and it will come up on a Word document that then you can edit, things like that. So don't not use technology, absolutely use it, but just be mindful about what that is telling. And also, of course, don't leave it to the last minute. And then I think we've all mentioned just the issues with there's a lot of demand on funding, particularly in it just is increasing year on year. So all these great tips for you, but it doesn't mean if you're declined or not fully funded that we don't appreciate how amazing your particular project is. So there's one more slide that's just got all the links on, so I'll stop sharing and ready for questions.
Perfect. Thanks, Bronwyn. Questions for Bronwyn? Are salaries considered? If so, are they a high or low priority?
So salaries are considered, they're part of operational costs. They're not high or low. They're just part of what we would consider.
What happens if you're a small national-based organisation, but with people based in different parts of New Zealand and working with organisations based in different parts of New Zealand? Do you just go by where the charity is registered?
So it's where the impact of the funding is. So one of the committees that was way back at the beginning was called Lottery National, and that would be where you would apply for funding.
So if you are across New Zealand or in different pockets of New Zealand, what percentage of New Zealand do you need to cover to then go nationally and not locally?
I mean, what happens is requests come in, all the lottery community committees open at the same time. So sometimes we will get requests in Auckland, I say around 90%, but don't worry, because what happens is because all of the lottery community committees open at the same time, including Lottery National, we have little conversations and say, actually, this one here is actually best place to go to Lottery National. It's not that if you were to apply to Auckland and actually it should be in Lottery National or vice versa, we go, oh, too bad, you don't get considered. We can swap the committees round internally.
Is it worth having a conversation with you first as to whether it should be Auckland or Wellington or National or wherever?
Happy to have that conversation, absolutely.
Is it possible to apply for funding for multiple organisations? If so, will it impact the total amount received? Would it be more beneficial to apply to just one organisation?
Oh, right. So you're different funders. So actually, what the Lottery Community Committee looks at, and also I can tell you Foundation North as well, and possibly sometimes council, but I don't want to speak for them, is that we're really happy for you to put an application into us and have one pending at Foundation North and vice versa, especially when you're looking at a really large project. And so we would encourage you to seek multiple sources of funding. I know that there are not just applying for funding, there are other ways of getting funding into organisations, and there's probably whole workshops and webinars on that. And we would encourage that, and we would encourage that to be reflected in budgets. We also sometimes we have organisations that might have some government contracts as well, and they are looking at operational costs, and they would put what they're getting for their government contract. But of course, in the application, we'd be looking for what are you doing beyond the government contract that you're seeking support from us, from Lottery for. But we absolutely encourage people to diversify their funding, and it's fine to, in fact, we encourage you to include that in your budget as well, because we often get questions from our committee, what happens if we can't fully support this? And there are, so what will happen? And so it's really great when we can say, well, absolutely, but they've got a request into Foundation North and they're looking to get some support from a local board they sit in, etc. Yeah.
My organisation is indirectly receiving some investment from Sport New Zealand. Can we still apply to Lottery Community Grant for ops costs?
You can. Yep, you just need to demonstrate the community benefit.
If our organisation has received funding from lottery communities, can we also apply for COGS? And if so, would a successful grant for the lottery community reduce our likelihood to receive COGS funding?
No, so we have lots of groups that apply for COGS and for lottery community. And I will also say, which I should have said earlier, is that, so especially for COGS, but also lottery community, if you're applying for operational costs, what we do is we give usually a contribution towards your operational costs. So I'd really encourage you to put all of your operational costs in your budget. So that's salaries, rent, stationery, everything that you'd put, and we will generally give a contribution, which means that if you were then to go to another funder and they only wanted to fund a specific bit of that, so for example they just want to fund some money towards the rental, then you can, I say, move the lottery money into a different part of onto a different cost. If you want money for salaries and you only apply for salaries, then you have to spend the money on salaries unless you come to us for a change of purpose.
If we don't get the amount that we asked for in the first round of lottery applications, can we apply again in round 2?
You can apply again in round 2, but know that you'll be seen as a lower priority. Generally speaking, the committee only wants to give out one grant per 12-month period to an organisation.
So if you're getting funding in round 1 and then you look to apply again in round 2, you wouldn't have done your accountability for round 1 yet. So does that make a difference?
So our accountabilities are all 12 months. So I understand we have a lot of groups that have come back in subsequent rounds, and I can tell you that in the last few years, because they didn't get the full amount and they're looking to get the full amount, and I can tell you that the Lottery Auckland community has funded 0 of those requests, which I appreciate is really, really hard on the community, but it's just a reflection that it's a really tough situation out there at the moment. So I would strongly advise that you don't come back in the subsequent round, that you just apply once per year and understand that's unless there's a significant change. Unless you're funding a brand new project or there's a huge increase in demand, the committee might consider that, but it's really not likely that they will.
What steps does the applications go through once they've been submitted? How many actually read the application? I'm not sure whether that's a lottery or COGS, but maybe you just want to choose one as an example.
So for lottery and COGS, it works a little bit different. So I'm happy to talk about both. So for COGS, we just do the administration, and actually the COGS committees, each application gets given to one of the committee members and they have a look at it, and they might call you up and then and ask you some questions, and then at the meeting each of the committee members is able to speak to the applications that they've had a look at, and that's all available on our website, by the way, all that information. For lottery, also this is available on the website. It comes in, an advisor like myself will have a look at it, and we will generally write a comment on how well it aligns to what the Auckland committee would like to fund. And then the Auckland committee also read all of the applications, and then at the meeting they make their decisions about where they would like to fund.
We're out of time. There are a couple of questions that we didn't get to. My apologies to those that we just simply run out of time. But I think we've answered most of them. Bronwyn, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here this morning and sharing your knowledge and expertise certainly on particularly lottery and COGS, which are two core funders for many of the people that would be on the call today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kelly Bold, Internal Communications Manager at Auckland Airport, who will talk to us today about their 12 Days of Christmas Fund. Welcome, Kelly. Glad you can join us today.
Thank you so much for having me and this wonderful opportunity to speak at the Community Funding Forum, Ngā mihi nui. So, ko Kelly Bold tōku ingoa. When I'm at Auckland Airport, I wear two hats. When I'm not writing all staff messages, creating stories and videos for our intranet, or organising events for our people, I also help deliver our community relations program. And a part of that every year is the 12 Days of Christmas. It's such a huge pleasure to administer this program, which brings real Christmas magic to South Auckland. I can hand on heart say it's one of the best things I've ever been paid to do in a job, ringing charities and telling them that they've won $10,000, especially during the festive season and especially in this current tough financial climate. It's a true joy. So what are the 12 Days of Christmas? This is our annual community giving tradition, where we've been spreading festive joy for over 15 years. Each year, Auckland Airport spreads the festive cheer in the lead up to Christmas by awarding $120,000 in grants to 12 amazing charities that serve our vibrant South Auckland community. This is all thanks to the generosity of travellers dropping their unwanted change into our collection globes, meaning we can distribute $10,000 each to charities making a real difference. And I'll talk more about the background soon. After a COVID-19 induced hiatus, we were able to bring back the 12 Days of Christmas in 2023. And that year we received our highest ever number of applications, with almost the same amount of applications received in 2024. Our grants process opens in October each year and runs for 3 to 4 weeks. And if you'd like to be added to our list to be contacted as soon as applications open, please just send me an email, and the email address is at the end of this presentation. Along with the funding, we also amplify the work of the incredible charities that win the 12 Days of Christmas with an enduring partnership with the New Zealand Herald. So for the 12 business days leading up to Christmas, we partner with the Herald to feature each recipient in the Herald, both print and online editions, and highlight the incredible mahi of our winners and share a bit of their love. We commission a talented freelance journalist to craft these stories with our winners, and winners get full approval of the copy before it goes live. We also work with a wonderful professional photographer to capture images like the beautiful ones you see here, and video to go with the stories on the Herald, and all grant winners receive these packaged up as well to use however you wish. Plus, our winners are also celebrated across the Auckland Airport social media channels. And all of this publicity helps raise more awareness and drive further support. So why do we do the 12 Days of Christmas? At Auckland Airport, we don't just operate in South Auckland, we're proudly part of this community. We've been here since 1965 and will be here for generations to come. These grants are part of our commitment to being a good neighbour, supporting organisations that educate, empower and uplift the people and environment of South Auckland. What do we look for? Well, we encourage all New Zealand registered charities that benefit South Auckland to apply. National charities that have an active presence in South Auckland are welcome to apply too, but just note that priority is given to those with a strong local focus or will benefit a specific program in our community. In line with our community relations strategy, our 12 Days of Christmas community giving program seeks to champion causes that support environment, education and employment, especially for young people. Along with the usual contact details of your charity, we keep applications really simple. We ask just 3 things. The first is, tell us your charity's objective in just 1 to 2 sentences. Second is who your charity benefits in South Auckland, and again, just 1 to 2 sentences. And then the last thing is how you plan to use the 12 Days of Christmas grants to benefit the communities or environment we work with. And we ask for up to 150 words. We are looking for a specific need, like a project, a program, or the purchase of an asset. And that's it. You can provide supporting information if you wish, but it's not compulsory, and more information provided doesn't automatically mean you have a better shot at receiving a grant. How do we select the winners? I can tell you it is no small task. Our dedicated judging panel includes 5 passionate people from different parts of Auckland Airport staff who get literally locked in a room for as long as it takes to get through the over 100 applications. Last year, that took close to 6 hours, and that was with each of them coming with a pre-prepared shortlist. They religiously and rigorously debate, discuss, and assess each submission to ensure the funding goes where it can make the biggest impact that year. I sit in that room to guide them through the process and keep them well stocked on snacks and caffeine, and I can tell you that sometimes it gets a little intense, but it's all good. So now for a little bit of background. If you've got as many grey hairs as me, you might remember that Auckland Airport used to have an indoor pond, and it became a bit of a thing where generous passengers started tossing their unwanted currency into it, essentially creating an unintentional wishing well. And this was great until our security cameras caught a traveller taking a dip in the pond and scooping up the coins. So our team cleared the pond and donated the coins to charity. But the generosity of travellers just kept flowing, and more coins kept finding their way into the pond. When we upgraded the terminal in the 90s, we replaced the pond with our globe money boxes, a safer and more contained way for travellers to donate. Fast forward a bit further, and the idea of the 12 Days of Christmas was born, transforming the globe donations into festive funds. We bank up the donated cash throughout the year so that once again we have a pool, but this time of money, not water. With passenger numbers returning to almost 2019 levels, globe donations have correspondingly increased too. And so on the left is Tony Scott, QSM, and one of our amazing Deputy Chief Fire Officers, who regularly clears and counts the coins in the globes in his own time. And on the right are some of our amazing 2024 grant recipients. They were Nurturing Families, ME Family Services, YMCA, Wanda Search. And here we have Dressed in Confidence, Kiwi Harvest, Kurakai, Makoto Marae Nursery, Auckland City Mission, Great Potentials, Glass Ceiling Arts Collective, and the Rising Foundation. These 12 charities are making a huge impact in South Auckland, from feeding families to empowering youth, nurturing the environment and building confidence. They represent the best of our community, and we're proud to support them. And this year and ongoing, we're offering a little bit more support too. So at Auckland Airport, all full-time staff are gifted 1 day of paid volunteer leave every year. We're about to launch a program called Stepping Up for South Auckland, where we'll have a calendar of ongoing volunteer opportunities for our people in conjunction with our 12 Days of Christmas winners. It makes it easy for our people to give back, and they can see firsthand the impact our 12 Days of Christmas winners have in our community. Now, before I finish up, I did want to touch on one more grant opportunity you might not have heard of, the Auckland Airport Community Trust. The Community Trust aims to provide financial assistance to reduce the impact of aircraft noise in homes and support community groups around the airport. The Trust has distributed $6.6 million to more than 30 schools and 275 organisations since its inception, and to celebrate its 20th birthday last year, was thrilled to offer the largest grant round in its history, with $500,000 available to local groups, continuing their commitment to the community. And this was able to support 29 causes that year. The Community Trust has 3 grant programs: financial assistance grants for eligible homeowners who have qualified for the Airport Noise Reduction Program, monthly response micro grants of up to $2,500 for local community support, and then the big one, annual community grants for local community support, and those grants can be up to $50,000. As you can see from this map, they do have a very specific area of benefit for grant applications. You can read more about the area of benefit, how to apply, and all the wonderful schools and orgs that have received grants in the Trust's 20-year history at this email address. And that's it from me. Are there any patai?
Brilliant. Thanks, Kelly. That was great. I didn't know about the pond. Look at the things you learn. Questions. Do you know if any other airports offer this? For example, Christchurch.
I don't believe they have a 12 Days of Christmas grant. I couldn't tell you about the Community Trust. That is run slightly independent of Auckland Airport, so we contribute funding, but we don't administer it. There's a board of trustees, and that's quite separate. So I can't speak to that. I'm sorry.
Any other questions for Kelly? Please put them in the Q&A box. Could Great Barrier Island fall into the area for grant consideration?
If you were a charity that was operating in Great Barrier and South Auckland and could show that the grant would go towards South Auckland, then yes. So that's sort of the same with the national lens. If you're a national charity operating in South Auckland, you can apply. But if you don't operate in and around South Auckland, then you would not be considered for the grant.
So you don't necessarily have to have an office in South Auckland. It's just proving that you provide service in South Auckland. And how do you suggest charities do that? Is that saying, we have X amount of clients or X percentage of clients, or we have a staff member based in South Auckland? How's best for them to show that to you?
We would love it if you could say that we already have operations in the area in some way, whether it's a program that you're delivering or an office. Either or is great. We just need to see that you do contribute to South Auckland.
If you have more than 120,000 to give away, will you choose more than 12 charities, or is it limited to 12?
The theme has always been the 12 Days of Christmas. What we have done in previous years is increase the amount that the charities get. So one year it was $12,000, and I can't say for certain, but it is looking at the moment, given the amount that's been banked, that we may be able to do more this year. So each of the 12 may receive a little bit more.
Okay, but it would remain at 12 charities to fit with the theme. Makes sense. Any other questions for Kelly? We've got a couple more minutes to go. As the North Shore is the new South Auckland Red Pride, would you donate to a project on the North Shore?
Again, it's for us, the priority is giving back to South Auckland, because that's where we're based, that's where we are neighbourhoods. So again, if you were North Shore based but operating in South Auckland, great, please apply. If you don't benefit South Auckland currently, then you would not be eligible.
Mm-hmm. So with the community grant that you mentioned at the end, does the request need to be specific, e.g. an operational cost? Or do you give direct just to budget it to overall budget costs?
I can't speak for the Trust too much, but they are looking for, again, projects that they can contribute to. The micro grants is more for operational costs, and the bigger grants are more for projects.
Okay, a couple of seconds if there's anybody typing a question. Oh, here we go. What are the boundaries for your definition of South Auckland?
We are pretty loose on that because we also realise that South Auckland is quite a big place and there's lots of impact across that area. So we would consider, down to Drury, Papatoetoe, Mangere, the whole kind of shebang. We're quite loose on that.
Okay. Our head office operates in South Auckland, but some of our programs are delivered out west. Can we still apply?
Definitely. If you're in South Auckland and your programs are South Auckland and West Auckland, great.
Mm-hmm. Again, if the charity is based in West Auckland, the other way around now, the charity is based in West Auckland, yet the youth development service will be provided to Mangere College or the Mangere Refugee Resettlement Centre. So we can still apply. Yes, you're saying yes. So good for that. Do you have a time period for the grant received and the funding spent? I think with your 12 days of Christmas, there's not as such, but.
Oh, so we go through the process. So we open applications in October. It's usually closed by the first week of November. We go through the nutting out of who the winners are going to be. They're informed really quickly, and we usually pay out by the 1st of December as well. And that's kind of to help them through that very busy and quite stressful Christmas period. And some of the benefits, some of the things that have benefited are Christmas-specific projects, like being able to help the food banks with Christmas costs. And so we try to get that through quite quickly. And then we don't have at this point, we don't ask you to follow up and prove that you spent the money. We leave it up to you.
Mm-hmm. And can you just go over again for the 12 days of Christmas, the areas that you support? You mentioned environmental, youth. Can you just go over those again for, there's just a couple of questions asking clarification.
Sure. So it's employment and particularly focusing on young people, environment and education.
Great. That's all of that. Kelly, thank you so much. Sincerely appreciate you being here with us this morning, and I think the 12 Days of Christmas is a great project, a great program, and the working with the Herald as well, the extra awareness really makes a difference to the charities that are chosen. And so thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Racheal Monks, Community Trust and Investment Manager for SkyCity Community Trust, Auckland, Hamilton and Queenstown. Welcome, Racheal. It's great that you can be with us today. Just a reminder, questions for Racheal in the Q&A box. Racheal, over to you.
Morena koutou. Thanks for having me this morning. And Kelly, those are some fabulous glasses. I couldn't take my eyes off your eyes. They are awesome. So I'm Racheal Monks. I have the privilege of being the Community Trust and Investment Manager at SkyCity. We have a trust wherever we have a property, so Auckland, Hamilton and Queenstown, and they vary in size and have different focuses. But this is specifically for Tamaki, hey? Stephanie, just checking. Yeah. So I'll just pop through the slides. So over the years, we have invested 77 million into various community initiatives throughout the country. And we've supported over 5,000 community organisations, and we run 2 contestable funding rounds per year. And that's similar across all 3 trusts. And in Tamaki, our focus is rangatahi, and it's been like that since we established the trust in 1996 with the opening of SkyCity here. We have a focus on partner funding, so ideally we would fund alongside other funders. In terms of other funders in Tamaki, we've got quite a small fund, so it sits at about 3 to 4 million each year. So about 1.5 to 2 in each funding round. These are our trustees for our Auckland Trust, and we're led by Marama Royal, who also chairs Ngāti Whātua Racheal, who are the mana whenua of the SkyCity precinct in Tamaki. We've got Te Arepa Morihu, Hui Perimita, Rosie Nathan, who's lots will be familiar with as a funding advisor for Foundation North, Vaisini Amaka, Don Mann, and Prue Etchbury. And some of you will be familiar with Prue's work, working with other charities on building their capability and capacity as well. So got the privilege of walking alongside these guys and ensuring that they have all the information that they need for decision making twice a year about who they're going to fund. So last year we had a review of our philanthropic practices, I'll just get to this one, and change the way that we fund. It's just an add-on to how we had been funding before. So we've set up the Heihua Fund, which is for a 10K one-off fund. That's got 150,000 available over the year. Those funds are looking for something that you want to give a go. Something new. You can be a partner of ours to access this fund, or you can be new. And then our other three funds, He Kākano, Te Kapua Wai, Te Kataputu Kapua Wai, are intended to be a pathway. So you'll start in He Kākano. If you're new to us, this is where we're able to establish a relationship and understand your mahi and whether it aligns to our funding priorities. And so if you're new, you'll come through our funding portal, Smarty Grants, and fill in an eligibility, or you'll connect with us directly on our website. And we'll have a conversation about what it is you're up to and whether progressing with us would be in your kind of best interest. I'm conscious, having spent quite a lot of time on the other side of funding, spending a lot of time doing funding applications. It takes a lot of time and a lot of energy, and we want to make sure that if you're applying to us, then you've got the best chance to put your best foot forward. And if you've received funding from us before, you'll be invited to apply through Katapu. This is a scaled down version of the application form, so the intention there is that it would be easier, and it's likely that we've had a couple of cups of tea along the way. So I've seen your mahi, I understand how your outcomes are going and how we can continue to support your activities. Kapua Wai is intended to be a multi-year extension of those in partnerships through Katapu, but what it's landed itself as is those kind of multi-year system change organisations that we have partnered with other funders on. So examples in there are like Voice Whakarongo Mai, the Care Experienced Agency that is looking at systems change, the Driving Change Network, which is looking to change the driver licensing process for young people, or anyone actually, and E Te Puerea, who are looking at an Indigenous model of that mums and bubs drop-in groups from a Mātauranga Māori perspective, and Manaaki Rangatahi, who are looking at youth homelessness. So everyone who is new to us will always say, how do I get into Kapua Wai? But it's a process. And so He Kākano is where we build on those relationships. So in Tāmaki, there's some beautiful rangatahi from Zeal West, and we have supported their programs for work-ready development with their barista program for the last 3 years in Tāmaki and in Hamilton. And our funding goes from Bombay to the far north. We don't set a limit on each fund, and we don't set a limit on a particular area. So we're really looking for those outcomes. And the outcomes that we're looking for has changed over the last year. So where we were looking at the wellbeing and development of our young people, we're now looking at what are the solutions that our young people are bringing forward, and how can we, as organisations and as funders, walk alongside them to reach those aspirations. So our age range of rangatahi is slightly older than others. So it's those that are no longer in education, up to about 34. So acknowledging that your kind of next stage of life isn't determined sometimes by the time you're 24. And through that process, it allows us to understand that kind of tuakana taina mentoring process as well, where you're kind of aging out of that kind of common description of rangatahi, and now you're looking at how you can help the next generation coming through. So it's a little bit older than other definitions of rangatahi, and that's by design. And then we've just got this beautiful photo here has Zeke from 1NZ, who I thought was going to be here today. So it's a shame that he's not sharing where they're at. Charlene from the Tyndall Foundation and Helen from the Todd Foundation. And this is a funding rōpū that we established for Manaaki Rangatahi. And just an indication that from our perspective, what we can influence is a little bit of money, but mostly connections. And we don't want to toot our own horns, but we're quite well connected in the young people space. So we understand the kind of landscape and context that we're operating in, and having other funders at the table and being able to connect other organisations together has worked really well. So that's one of the things we can do alongside the funding. And that is me.
Fantastic. Thank you. Questions for Racheal, please put them in the Q&A box. Do you administer requests for lighting up the Sky Tower?
I don't administer it, but I am part of my team does. So if you've got requests, send them through.
What sort of reporting is required?
Yeah, so we send out a automated report request 12 months after you've received funding. That comes straight through our Smarty Grants portal. But it's likely, as I said, that we've probably had a cup of tea between then you receiving the funds and that reporting schedule. So sometimes we can fill that in together. Sometimes I can do that, or sometimes it's easier for you to do that. But we're looking at kind of being a little bit more relational than having organisations spend a lot of time filling out forms.
Do you fund non-registered groups?
We do through our Hehua fund. You just need a charitable organisation to hold the fund for you. And so we fund holders. We can do that across the funding streams.
Just to confirm, so your funding is only for rangatahi school leavers to 34 years of age?
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes that can be it can be a bit fluid, depending on the community and what the community is telling us they need.
Does the grant support organisations supporting young people from former refugees and migrant backgrounds, especially young people who have come through the project and are now working in staff positions or getting paid for facilitation?
Yeah, so we have a relationship with Refugees as Survivors, the Young Muslims Club in Mount Roskill, the Refugee Coalition. Yeah, definitely.
So it seems that someone has applied, but it's automated online, and they'd love to be able to engage with your team, but have been unable to.
Okay.
So they can contact you direct?
Absolutely.
Through the
Please do.
website, email address, they can contact you and arrange a time to have a chat?
Yes.
There you go, Katie. You can do that. What are the open and closing dates for the funding rounds?
Yeah, so we're open at the moment. It closes next Friday, the 7th of March, because our trustees are meeting mid-April. And then we'll be open again in July for a October meeting. It's kind of that kind of timing every year, but you can be added to our mailing list as well, via email or via our website, and that will notify you when it's open.
Mm-hmm. More of a statement than a question. Love the diversity of the trustees, youth, gender balance of women and men.
Thank you.
If you've consulted rangatahi and they have helped you shape your project based on their feedback, would that count as enough of a rangatahi-led project, even if they may not be involved in the delivery of the project themselves, but are as participants?
It would be on a case-by-case basis. Obviously, we need some guardrails without rangatahi until they kind of can fly themselves. So we understand that that's a process. So it would be on a case-by-case determination, and that would require a cup of tea for sure.
Would wellbeing projects be eligible with sport as the vehicle?
Oh, sorry, we don't do any sporting events or interventions. That I think probably about 5 years ago we may have, but since we've redone our strategy, sports isn't for us.
Okay. Would you consider projects that are not specifically targeted at young people, but are run by younger people?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you fund small community groups who do living healthy lifestyles and weight loss challenges?
We don't actually, and I haven't had any applications in that kind of vein. I think health and wellbeing is to be determined by the community and what they need. So it's not a no, but it's not something that we're seeking out.
Okay, so worth having a cup of tea with you and having a chat.
Absolutely.
I hope you love tea, because I think you're going to be having a lot of it in the very near future. Any more questions for Racheal? Tried to answer as many as possible. Oh. Do you fund disability and inclusion projects or climate action focused projects?
Yeah, so we fund quite a few disability programs. We fund Flourish Cafe, FAB, which runs a Pacific Island disability program, Pacific Dance Whānau, who work with disabled young people, and Recreate. So quite a few disability organisations. Climate's an interesting one. If it's rangatahi-led, we've got a couple that are happening in Northland at the moment. But yeah, that's new for us.
Someone's asking for your website and email address, please. So they can Google, it's all on your website. So you just want to give your website address, and then there's your emails on there.
Yes, so I pop it in the chat because it's you've got to hunt for it out of the SkyCity website. So that's a fair request.
Fair enough. Do you want to put in the Q&A, then everybody will. Simon, did we fix the chat so that everybody can see that?
Oh, so what will happen is I can grab it from the chat, and I'll just make it part of an email that I'll send out to everybody afterwards.
Perfect. Do you fund family violence, sexual violence services projects for families in rangatahi?
We have done in the past, but they in the future they would need to be rangatahi-led.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Last chance questions for Racheal. They frantically typing one in. It's great when we get to answer all the questions. I do feel bad when I have to leave some behind. No? Great. Racheal, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being with us today and for the information you've shared. I think there's, as I said, lots of cups of tea in your future.
It's my best life.
I couldn't work here. I don't drink tea, so we're all good. Again, thank you so much.
Ka kite.
Yeah, enjoy your day. So our next speaker is Rebecca Mihu, for a Senior Trustee of Charities for the Public Trust. Great you could be with us today, Rebecca, listening to everybody up to now. So glad that you're here, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Rebecca Mihu. Thank you for this opportunity to speak at this important forum today. As a Senior Trustee at Public Trust, I am passionate about my work, and I believe many of you share the sentiment in the charitable sector. I have a genuine respect and admiration for our settlers and will makers, whose legacies continue to positively impact New Zealand. It is both a pleasure and an honour to carry out these legacies. Today, I'll be providing a brief overview of the points displayed on your screen and will be happy to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. History at Public Trust. As the country's longest-serving trustee organisation, Public Trust is proud of its 150-year heritage of being trusted by New Zealanders. When the Public Trust Office opened in 1873, it was the first state-run public trustee services organisation in the world. We take pride in our history of charitable gifting as one of New Zealand's largest charitable trust administrators and advisors. We support over 420 charities, ensuring that benefactors' intentions are honoured throughout the life of their charitable trusts. In our role as charitable trustees, Public Trust handles registration, reporting, gifting, legal matters, accounting, and ensures that assets are invested to provide lasting benefits. By granting over 12 million annually through charitable trusts, Public Trust plays a crucial role in channeling funds back into communities, significantly impacting the lives of New Zealanders in need. Public Trust manages a diverse range of charitable files, ensuring that each benefactor's intentions are honoured and their legacies continue to make a positive impact on communities across New Zealand. At Public Trust, our charities team is made up of 8 dedicated professionals. We operate primarily remotely, spread across the country. Our team brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to our work, ensuring we provide the best possible support and services. I will now provide a brief overview of some of the trusts that we administer. We have identified 4 charities that benefit the Northern region, and in no particular order. Estate of Alan William Shaw. The late Mr. Alan Shaw was passionate about education and established this trust to make tertiary education possible for students from Orewa College. The trust came into effect upon his passing in 2006. Terms of the trust are as follows. 4 new scholarships are awarded each year. Preference is given to top academic students and those facing financial hardship due to personal or family circumstances. Public Trust manages the funding for these scholarships. ProCare Charitable Foundation. The foundation has appointed Public Trust as its independent trustee and administrator for grant applications. The foundation supports the health and well-being of disadvantaged communities in Auckland by funding activities that improve well-being, reduce health inequalities, and alleviate poverty. Each year, the trustee and board decide the grant funding levels and format. Grants are awarded based on the foundation's objectives and the merits of the applications. Priority is given to applications that show partnership and collaboration with matching funds. Louisa and Patrick Emmett Murphy Foundation. The foundation supports charitable organisations within New Zealand, focusing mainly on the Auckland area, from Welsford to Pukekohe. Organisations must benefit people in the Auckland area by assisting and caring for the terminally ill individuals, improving the quality of life for older adults, providing care for those suffering from illness. And finally, the Booth Trust. John Stuart Booth, an Aucklander, left his residuary estate to the John Stuart Booth Trust. The trust provides grants to improve the quality of life for aged and infirm persons living permanently in the North Shore City area of Auckland. This area is defined by the former North Shore City Council boundaries. Applications usually open in April every year. How does one apply for grants at Public Trust? Applicants can typically apply through our website, which directs them to Smarty Grants. We also advertise through other channels such as Facebook and newspapers. For more information, please check our website, publictrust.co.nz. Best practice tips. We have been asked to provide best practice tips. In 2024, we faced significant challenges in our funding rounds. One of our trusts saw a 51% increase in applications compared to the previous year. This surge in demand highlighted a critical issue. The total amount of funds requested was nearly 6 times our available granting budget. These numbers underscore the growing need for support and the importance of our work. We are very aware that many organisations are struggling with the increased demand for their services, increased costs, and a challenging fundraising environment. My team and I have put together best practice tips for things that we encourage and the points that we agree that need work. So if you have any questions regarding a trust or grant round, please contact us. We encourage this highly. You can contact us at funding@publictrust.co.nz or call us via our 0800 number. We're always very much happy to help. I will summarise the above best practice tips. These are bullet points, I apologise. So application tips. Provide relevant and current supporting information. Include up-to-date financials or explain why older information is used. Draft accounts are acceptable. Ensure financials comply with charity services requirements, i.e. charity services reporting standards. Clearly explain the impact of the funds, including facts and figures. Ensure your application aligns with the trust purpose and selection criteria available on our website. Be clear and have a defined goal. For previous grant recipients, ensure timely submission of receipts and accountability reports. Use the Public Trust Find a Grant search function for additional funding opportunities. Now, common issues we see within our applications, and in summary. Again, bullet points. Lack of alignment with trust priorities or funding criteria. Requesting funds for ineligible purposes. Not focusing on the funding region. Unclear benefits to the funding region. Vague project impact and outcomes. Insufficient project details and organisational capacity. Missing or non-compliant financial statements, charity services reporting standards, not understanding the trust purpose and criteria, failing to submit receipts and accountability reports from previous grants, copying and pasting previous applications. Ensure your application aligns with the trust priorities and funding criteria. Clearly outline the project's impact, provide detailed information, and submit compliant financial statements. Plan ahead for submitting receipts and reports if you have received a previous grant. Tailor each application to the current round for best chance of success. If you are unsure, we are always available to help. Please contact us via email or our 0800 number. So now I've got questions and I'll just pop onto the screen of our contact information also.
Fantastic, Rebecca, thank you. Now to apply for a grant via the Public Trust, so that's via your website, and you use the Smarty Grants platform, so people need to register?
Yes, you will. Yep. I think the first page when you come up to click on a grant round, it will ask you to register your details through our website. Yep.
Okay, so questions for Rebecca in the Q&A. So, do you support environmental projects?
Yes, we do. Yes, we have multiples of trusts. They're not as large as, say, education and animals and things like that. But yes, we do have education trusts. Sorry, environmental trusts. Yeah.
Because certainly once you go into the Public Trust website, and you can, their system's great in that you can see, tick the box. It tells you the ones that are open now, the ones that are coming up, and it gives you a little blurb around the fund, the trust, what they fund, and then yes, if you haven't registered with them with the Smarty Grants platform, then you need to do that, and then their application form is quite straightforward to be able to apply. And great that you and your team are available to answer questions. And if someone's not unsure about what to apply for or how much, it's great that you're able to be willing to answer those questions. Any more questions for Rebecca?
I'll just say as well, with that, going to our website and looking at what grants are open, if you can't find specifically if it doesn't, the keywords that you're using don't work, you can't find anything that is coming up for you, please just contact us. We'll probably be able to find something for you. So yeah, please don't hesitate, because those search functions, they're very good, but sometimes you've got something really niche that you need to talk to someone about. So yeah, contact us, please.
And it's great. You've also got funds for individuals as well as organisations, so you can search separately for that too once you go into the website.
Absolutely.
Other questions for Rebecca? People typing? Do you find that you have many incomplete applications?
Recently, no. Obviously, with the funding environment at the moment, people are definitely completing their applications. But no, a lot of people, we're very much encouraging a lot of communication. So at times we are following up with those incomplete ones too. So they won't just be left in the lurch. Yeah.
And are you finding, is it worthwhile attaching supporting documents like the latest newsletter or some photos showing the
Yes,
work
please.
in action? Either to support those sorts of things, you're all welcomed. Because I know you can't
Absolutely.
always put what you want to say in the answer. There's always a limit. So the attachments are good.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, because at the moment, I think a lot of us are wanting to see impact. So those supporting docs with photos and reports and newsletters, absolutely, please attach those. Yeah.
Great. Do you support wellbeing funding for primary schools?
Wellbeing funding for primary schools. I can come back to you if you want to contact me directly, that person that asked that question, we can have a look. I can't think of one off the top of my head directly for primary schools. It would depend what it was specifically for too. So yeah, please contact and we can have a look.
Okay, anonymous attendee, I'll let you contact Rebecca and find that one. Operational costs, always a tricky thing to get funding for at times. Do you have funds that support operational costs?
Absolutely, and the last 2024, we saw a lot of applications for that. So yes, yeah.
Do you support charitable organisations hosting youth orchestra concerts?
The arts, yes, but that would depend on where in the country we're located, depending on what the trust deed says or what the will says. But yes, I do have knowledge that there are charities that we do support the arts. Yeah.
And so going on from programs in primary schools, the next question is, and programs in high schools?
Yes, absolutely. We particularly scholarships. Yes, we tend to have a lot of scholarships, particularly for the Auckland region.
And the scholarships are for people to attend the college or to go on to tertiary university study?
Both. Yeah, there's plenty in Auckland, especially for there's a lot of tertiary education ones in particular at the moment. Obviously, I'm seeing all of them at the moment because we've got people going into tertiary study at the beginning of March, don't we? So yes, but yeah, if you're looking for something specific, if you can't see it on the granting website, please just contact us directly at the funding inbox or me directly. I'm happy to help you.
Brilliant, thank you. Any other questions for Rebecca? I know their website's great and it's really clear and easy to follow with the funds that the different trusts they have, what they fund, when they open, those sorts of things. So it is a straightforward. The key thing is to make sure you're registered with Smarty Grants so that you can follow through with the application and therefore then complete your accountability. Any other questions for Rebecca? No? Okay, Jim. Rebecca, thank you so much. Again, really appreciate you joining us this morning and for your insights. And I'm sure you'll get a flurry of emails and with wanting to meet and have a chat and answer some more questions. So that can bring us to the end of the funding forum. We have a few minutes ahead of schedule, which I think is a first. So that's great. I'd like to ask Fiona Brennan from ANCAD to say a few words.
I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of our speakers and presenters today. I know Rebecca is anyone with us at the moment, but it was absolutely fascinating. Such a wealth of knowledge and guidance. And I think all of our funders demonstrate the depth of their understanding of the challenges and issues facing our communities and their willingness to engage and have good communication with you. So those encouragements to get in touch, to check out if your application is appropriate or suitable, and really take advantage of that, because then that can really help to shape your project and shape the work that you're doing and the outcomes that you're trying to achieve for the community in partnership with your funders. The many questions that have been asked were invaluable and show quite a lot of shared concerns. So hopefully this webinar has been really useful in answering your questions, even if you didn't directly put an answer in the chat. I know I saw some questions that were relevant to me and were answered. So I'm really grateful for those people who took the time to ask the questions. Thank you for your time this morning. We really appreciated it. We hope it's been a useful session. Do follow up. I think the webinar will be available in due course. Simon will tell us about that at the moment. You're welcome to reach out to us for further support or attend our workshops. And I just want to say, kia kaha, ka kite ano. I hope that you will be successful in all your funding in the weeks and months ahead. Huge thank you to Stephanie and Simon, finally, for your work and effort in bringing all of this together. We are so appreciative of everything that you have done to bring this to our community today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Fiona. I'd also like to thank all our speakers and to you for attending. I'm sure you found it worthwhile, and I really hope that your grants funding increases as a result. So just a reminder that the speakers' presentations will be emailed. Don't forget to get your copy of the 2025 funding guide via the ANCAD website, ancad.org.nz, and to check out the other funding training opportunities that ANCAD offers via the lift.nz website. Also, a quick 2-question survey will appear at the end of the webinar. Please take a moment to complete, as your feedback is really important as we plan future events. Again, our thanks to all. We've given you an extra 13 minutes in your day, so use them wisely. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.